Welcome to Programming KT. I am explaining about the concept is iteration statements. So, iteration statements are used to execute specific block of code number of times. I mean, depending on our requirement, if we want to execute specific block of code, then iteration statements are useful. So, we have total three iteration statements like for, while, do while. Let me try to list out them, then I will explain one by one. So we have total three iteration statements like first one is for, and the second one is while, third one is do while. So these are the three iteration statements. In this video, I will explain about for loop. I mean for iteration statement. So each and everything. I mean what are the possible ways and what are some points you need to remember about for everything. So now let me try to write syntax about for and some examples. So for loop, I am trying to explain. I mean for iteration statement. So before this, let me try to explain about. I mean what is the use case. I will explain with some use case. So use case here it is. I am trying to, so I want to print numbers from 1 to 5. So without using for loop, how we can do? Just straightforward, we are beginner, right? So if we didn't use for loop, just we can write on SOP statement, right? System dot out dot println 1, system dot out dot println 2, SOP of 3, SOP of 4, and SOP of 5. So I am writing exactly 5 lines. So if I want to write 10 lines, and again I need to repeat the same process again, SOP of 10. So 100 times. This is not at all recommended. So the code verbosity will be increased, right? And moreover, that number of lines will be here increased. N number of times you need to write SOP. So to override, to overcome this problem, we can use, for loops are introduced. So this is the same task, right? Same task we are trying to do repeatedly, but the value is different. So we can achieve this by using for loop. So how we can achieve? By 3 lines only. We can achieve all this logic by using for loop in 2 to 3 lines. So first let me try to explain about for loop syntax. Then I will write example for same use case. So for loop syntax I am trying to write here. So syntax of for loop will be for loop have three parts. So for first part is initialization, second part is condition, third part is increment or decrement. So this is the syntax about for loop. For loop body. So whatever the statements you write inside that for loop body, it will execute these many. Condition until unless condition becomes false, it will execute the. For loop will be executed. So we have first part is initialization, second part is condition, third part is increment or decrement. Now let me try to write example about for loop with this use case. So let me try to write example for, to print the numbers from 1 to 5. So for that, first we need to declare for loop like for int I is equal to 0. Or else I can start with I is equal to 1 also. I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 5, and I plus plus. So this is the relational operator. If you don't know, I already make videos on operators, logical operators, relational operators, arithmetic operators, assignment operators, like that. So if you don't know, watch that videos, then you will get some clarity on operators concept. So once I declare the for loop, I'm trying to write system dot out dot println. So println of the value of I am trying to print it. So here I exactly in 3 lines I got it. So here 5 lines instead of 5 lines I read only with the 3 lines only I got the logic. So not only 5. If I can put here 10, so I don't need to change any line of code here. So these 3 lines are constant. The condition is, if you want to write, I mean print the numbers from 10, I will replace this 5 with 10. So if you want to print it from 100 times, I can replace, I mean 10 with 100, but there is no difference, right? But here in this case, you need to write number of SOP statements 100 times, 500 times, like that. So to overcome these problems, these iteration statements are executed, I mean introduced. So moreover that our, I mean work will be simplified by using iteration statements. More of that, here I am trying to explain about for loop. So now let me try to explain about how for loop will be executed internally. So internally, for loop will start from initialization part. So first it will jump into initialization part. Then value will be assigned by using assignment operator. I mean one will be stored into value I. So this is the assignment operator equal to, then it will jump into, once the initialization part is done, then it will jump into condition. So I one will be stored into I value. So I less than or equal to 5. If it is true, then it will jump into I mean for loop body. So once the, here I am trying to write only one line. So in real time, when you are working with projects more than one line, so in that case, all, I mean for loop body will be executed. Then again it will be entered into, it will entered into next time once the statement is printed, or corresponding business logic is executed inside for loop body. So increment will be, I mean increment part will, it will reach to increment part, it will increment the value of I, or if you write decrement, it will decrement it. Then again it will jump into conditional statement, I mean second conditional part. So again the condition will be checked. Again statement will be printed. I mean for loop body business log executed. Then again jump into increment or decrement part. So this will be repeat until unless this condition becomes false. So it will loop the same process. For loop body increment condition. For loop body increment or decrement condition. Like this it will loop it. So continuously it will loop until unless that condition part, I mean this condition part becomes false. Now let me try to explain, I mean trace out, I mean how it will work internally with these five values. I mean we are trying to print from 1 to 5, right? Let me trace out that. So why? Because these loop concepts are very very important. So until unless if you have more clarity, so then only you can work in real time projects. So, and moreover that when to use for loop, how for loop will execute internally. So if someone will ask how to trace it, this part, tracing part will be helpful, very easy. So tracing. So initially I value I am trying to declare, I am specifying about I value, then condition I less than or equal to 5, then corresponding output we are trying to print here, right? So that value I am trying to print here. I mean I will explain with the tracing part. So initially it will jump into initialization statement, right, for loop. So it will, I value is initialized with 1, and it will next time it will jump into condition, I mean second step, 1 less than or equal to 5. So true. Then once it is true, jump into for loop body. What is the logic inside for loop body? Printing I. What is the I value? I value is 1. So do the same process. Now once the printing statement is done, again it will jump into increment part. So then it will increment the value from previous value of I is 1, right? Now it will becomes plus plus means I value is 2. So this is the increment operator. This operator also I explained about in previous videos under operator section. Watch that videos. So once the increment is done, again jump into condition. What is the condition? I mean I value is 2 less than or equal to 5. So again true, jump into inside for loop body, print the I value. What is the current I value? 2, print it. Again jump into conditional statement, increment the value. 2 is replaced with 3, I mean it will add plus 1 to previous value. Again 3 less than or equal to 5, here condition. Once the condition is true, jump into, I mean statement part. I mean it will print the value of current I value is 3. Let me try to move some little bit up. Next, once the statement is print, again it will increment the value. So 4 less than or equal to 5. Print the current I value. Again it will jump into 5. I mean increment value is incremented 5 less than or equal to 5. So this is also true. 5 equal to 5, right? True. Printed. Now again it will jump into increment statement. So the value becomes 6. 6 less than or equal to 5. So in that case the condition will be false. In that case, for loop will be terminated. Here 6 less than or equal to 5, here the condition becomes false. Now immediately for loop will be terminated. So this is about tracing part about, for loop. So this is internal logic, internal execution order about for loop. So let me try to explain some points about for loop. This is I wrote example and syntax, moreover the iteration, internal execution of for loop. Now let me try to explain about some points, and I can say some notes also. So why? Because these notes are useful when you are writing online exams, and moreover that when you are attending tricky interview questions also, these notes will be helpful. Some important points about for loop. So in that first point, I'm trying to explain. So initialization statement inside for loop is always optional. Like if I can declare for, I will, I don't want to initialize I value inside for loop. This is also perfectly valid. But I can declare outside of for loop int I is equal to 0, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus. SOP of I. This is also perfectly valid syntax. We can declare, initialization part out of the, I can say out of the for loop. This is about one rule. This is also perfectly valid for loop. And the next one will be decrement part also. It is always, it is not recommend, we can declare inside of the for loop. Here only, we can always, we need to declare this increment part or decrement part in third part, for loop third section. It is always optional. So let me try to write for that example as well. So here I have int I is equal to 1, and I less than or equal to 5. So this increment and decrement part I will declare here, after my statement. Here I am trying to increment it. So this is also perfectly valid for loop statement. So next point is, we can declare more than one value, more than variable at the time of initialization. This one also perfectly valid. So now let me try to explain that one as well. I am trying to declare int I is equal to 0 comma j is equal to 0. We need to separate these two variables with comma. Finally I am trying to declare about condition I less than or equal to 5, and j less than or equal to 5, and finally whatever increment, or you can decrement also, no problem. So this is also perfectly valid. SOP of some I value and j value. So this is also perfectly valid for loop. We can declare more than one variable of same types. If you want to declare different data types, in that case you will get compilation error. That is the one point you need to remember. Same data types it will allow, but a different data type it will not allow. You will get compilation error. So at the time of explaining example in editor, I will explain in detail. So this is about third point. Same data type, same types you need to use. We declare. Let me try to declare that one as well. For int I is equal to 0, comma float f equal to 0, f 0 point, float is a point value, decimal value, right? Floating value. So this is not at all recommended. Ends with f, and I less than or equal to something 5, or whatever it may be. It can write condition and increment part or decrement part. So this is invalid syntax of for loop. Why? Because you are trying to declare more than, one data type. It is always allowed only same data types. More than one variable you can declare, but if it is different data types, it will be, you will get compilation error. This is the one point you need to remember. And the next one is, so more than one statement I already explained. So condition is always it must be expected, true value, true or false value. So if we did not handle properly, it will jump into infinite loop. So let me try to explain about for loop. So if I can write for loop like this, This is called infinite for loop. So if we can write the code inside this some SOP statement of hello, so it will be printed into infinite times. You can't handle it. So this is the infinite loop. I can say infinite for loop. So we need to maintain always condition. There must be a condition. If a condition part is blank, it will be went into infinite. That is the one point you need to remember. Anyway, initialization part, increment or decrement part optional, right? Either you can declare inside of for loop, can increment or decrement condition, and initialization may be outside of for loop. But condition must be inside for loop only. So we need to maintain this condition. Then only you can the for loop will be finite loop of iterations, otherwise it will went into infinite loop. And moreover that one final point, sixth point. So it is we can write the statement like SOP on in the place of initialization. SOP of hello, I can write hello. Then I am trying to write the some condition I plus plus. So this is also perfectly. So this value must be initialized above somewhere else. So this is also perfectly valid. We can write SOP statements in at the time of initialization part. So same applicable SOP statement we can write on increment or decrement part also. So more than one statement also we can write it. So anyway, with these kind of scenarios I will cover at the time of writing example. But anyway, it is same, right? We can write SOP statement on the part of initialization. Moreover that we can write more than one SOP statement with comma separated value. Same rule is applicable for increment part or decrement part also. So these are the 6 points you need to remember about for loop. When you are writing about some online examples, this will be helpful. And moreover that I need to explain about two keywords along with these iteration statements, like I can explain here. So first one is break, second one is continue. So break statement is used to stop the execution of for loop or iteration statement at any time. So depending on your requirement, if you want to stop the execution process, once you reach that specific target, we can break it by using break statement. Moreover, that break is always recommended. We need to write inside loops are inside switch. So if we can write this break statement out of this loop or out of this break statement, you will get compilation error. This is the one point. This will be, I mean, these kind of questions are asked in OCJP exam, I mean, exam or some online test. In that case, MCQ questions we have, right? In that examples, it will ask. So if the break statement you found out of for loop and out of switch, then that is compilation error. We can answer like compilation error. So continue is nothing but if you want to specific part, I mean specific target, if you want to skip it, then continue will be recommended. I can say to skip. Now let me try to write example for this break and continue. So I want to print numbers from 1 to 10, 1 to 10. So I want to break at I value is 7. Wantedly I am trying to break, but in real time there may be a specific use case. In that case we can use break, but here my intention is to so I mean to explain about how break will work. So wantedly I will break it int I is equal to 1, I less than or equal to 10, I mean this is the colon I mean increment. So I am trying to break the loop if the I value is 7. So here I am trying to write the break statement. So out of if I am trying to print the I value. So if we have only one statement, then curly braces are optional. So this is already explained on at the time of explaining if block. So one more point you need to remember under for loop. So if you have for loop have only one line of statement, same rule is applicable for loop also. If you have only one line of statement, then curly braces are optional. Means so we are printing numbers from I equal to 1 to I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus. So SOP of I. So this is also perfectly valid. This is about some seventh point you can consider. Anyway, this rule I explained about if block and when I am trying to explain about conditional statements. So same rule is applicable for loop also. If it is having only one line of statement, then curly braces are optional. So I want to break it at the time of if I value is 7. In that case, what is the output? Let me try to trace out that. So I value is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then at the time of 7, the loop will be break. We can't get the result 7, 8, 9, 10. Here anyway up to 10, but it won't print. I mean up to 10. It will print only 7. Why? Because we are wantedly breaking the loop here exactly. 5 value is 7. So continue is nothing but if I can write, I mean instead of break with continue. So let me try to write that example as well. I am trying to print the numbers from 1 to 10. So same for loop I am trying to use. I value is 1, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus. So here if I value is equal to 7, I am trying to use the keyword called continue. So what does it mean, SOP of I? Now let me trace out, I mean output for this statement as well. I mean continue. So in this case, let me trace out the example, I mean output. So one, two, three. I mean it will print the initialization is done. Then go to condition, print the state, check into enter into insert for loop body. I mean the corresponding logic will be executed. Again jump into increment or decrement. Again check the condition. Repeat the same process. In that scenario, one will be printed, two will be printed, three will be printed, four, five, 6, 7. Here I value is matched. 7 equal to 7 true. In that case, we are trying to say skip, continue. Means don't, I mean execute, I mean remaining lines. Once you reach the target, then it will start, this value will be skipped. Then again it will start from 8, 9, 10. So here we skip that value. The I value is 7. So this is about continuous statement. To skip that specific condition, I mean specific condition, if you want to skip some logic, in that case, continuous statement is required. So this is about break and continue about for loop. And moreover that I explained in detail explanation about what are the nodes, I mean rules applicable for loop, and moreover that syntax, explanation, internal working, tracing part, everything. Now let me try to explain about, I mean, examples with execution order in Visual Studio Code. Now I am trying to explain about some examples about for loop by using Visual Studio Code editor. So for this, I already created a file, I mean, Java file iteration statements example, and moreover that I already created one folder called iteration statements. Inside that folder only, I created iteration statement example. Now let me try to write examples about for loop. So iteration statement, we have three for while, do while. So I'm explaining about first one. So what is the syntax for loop? For loop have three parts, right? At the time of explaining, I explained on whiteboard. So first part is initialization, second part is condition, or else I am using up to 5 only. Third part is increment or decrement. So it's out of I. So here I need to remove this extra condition. So this is about, let me start with the, anyway 0 also we can use. Let me start with 1. Now instead of this ln, I am trying to use n only. I am trying to print the within the line only. So I am trying to move inside iteration statements. Then I am trying to run it Java iteration statement example.java. So it is printing the values from 1 to 5. Why? Because here I am using less than or equal to. That's why the value 5 itself it is printing. So this is the initialization part. Initialization part will be executed only one time, and the increment, I mean less than or equal to 5 means it will next one, I mean first initialization part is done, then it will check it, I mean jump into condition part. If the condition is true, then only I enter into for loop body. Once the for loop body execution is done, then jump into increment part. Again jump into condition. Repeat the same process until unless this condition becomes false. So anyway, I already traced it out, right? I hope you got clarity. So not only increment, you can use decrement also. So if I want to print numbers from 5 to 1, in that case I need to change the condition. So greater than or equal to 1, and moreover that I need to decrement the value. This is ends with a, I mean, semicolon. Now let me try to run it. So I got the values from previously 1 to 5, now 5 to 1. This is about, I mean, decrement part. Previously it is increment part. So let me try to explain about now notes about for loop. So I will remove this initialization part outside of for loop. So this is also perfectly valid. So 5 to 1. If you want to update, I mean, it will be the previous output. Let me try to change the I value. Now it will print the numbers from 7 to 1. So 7 to 1. So updated value you are seeing, right? So I am saying initialization part is, it is always optional inside for loop. We can declare outside of for loop also. This is about first rule. And the second rule is this decrement part also we can declare inside of for loop. So this is also perfectly valid. So at the time of writing examples, these kind of, I mean, code snippets they will ask. These snippets will be so much useful. So again I am getting the same output. Let me change the output again, I mean condition again. So it will print the number from 8 to 1. So this is the expected value. So now this is the second rule. Again third rule is I can write statement sop of hello Java. So this is also perfectly valid. In that case, how for loop will execute internally? First part will be initialization part, right? In that case, first hello Java will be printed, then 8 to 1. So hello Java, then 8 to 1. More than one statement also we can use. I mean, this is also perfectly valid. This point also you need to remember when you are writing about online test. This is also perfectly valid. Hello, I can say for loop. Hello Java for loop. So in that case, two statements. Hello Java for loop. So this is n number of statements also you can declare more than one, not only one. So same thing here also we can declare here. So I am trying to write one more s out. Say s out of again for inc for increment part. Let me try to remove this semicolon. Now let me try to export it. So in that case, why? Because every time, so once the statement is printed, again it will jump into, I mean, conditionals, increment or decrement part, right? Then it will jump into condition here in this case. So here it is executing. So how many times condition will be executed? Those many number of times last statement will be executed. I mean, here also you can declare more than one time. I mean, more than one. I mean, yes out statement. That one also perfectly valid. For now, I am trying to remove this. So you can explore on your own, but it is always valid syntax only. I think these are the rules, and moreover that I need to explain about some points. I mean, if it is only one line, now let me try to remove everything. Put as it is for loop int I equal to 1. Now remove this one as well. I equal to 1, I less than or equal to 10 or 5. So a plus plus. So if it is only one statement, I mean one line of statement, then I mean curly braces are always optional. Now let me try to remove this. It's out of I. So now make proper alignment. Now let me try to run it. So I got the values from 1 to 5. So I did not enter, I mean, curly braces. If it is only one line, then curly braces are always optional. So this is about I mean last rule about for loop at the time of explaining when for loop some points, right? And next one is break and continue. Now let me try to change this 1 to I mean 5 to 10. So at the time of iterating, now I have more than one statement. That's why I need to use curly brace. If a value is equal to 5, so I am trying to break it, right? Or I mean outside of the I mean if statement, I am trying to print the I value. Now let me try to run. Our expected value is 1 to 5 only. I mean 1 to 4. Why? Because at the time of 5, 5 equal to 5, it is breaking. So then remaining part will be won't executed. Why? Because at the time of 5 only it is breaking. That's why you got the values from 1 to 4 only. So this is about break statement. So break is always used inside switch and inside for loop. Anyway, at the time of explaining conditional statements, I already explained about break. So to stop once the condition is maxed, I mean, for any case is matched, we need to break it. Otherwise, it will execute other cases also. That's why we can use break in switch. In for loop, if you want to break it, specific condition, on specific condition, you can use break. And moreover that continue. Continue also one of the keyword in Java. So to skip the current, I mean condition is matched. So if I value is equal to 5, I am trying to skip it. I mean printing part. So it will print from 1 to 10 except 5. So 1 to 10, but here there is no 5. Why? Because with I mentioned, I mean continue, right? If the I value is continue, that's why the current condition, I mean execution value about this statement, the value 5 will be skipped. This is usage about continue. So I hope you got clarity on how for loop will be executed and what are the rules applicable for loop, internal execution of for loop, and break continue. So if you got, I mean if you like the content and you learned something new about for loop from this video, hit on like button and subscribe Programming Kitty. Thanks for watching.